Good morning. How are you today? Wish I could say I'm doing well. Got it set up on a tripod this time, so there shouldn't be a lot of stuff going on. Anyway, today's Wednesday, May 19th. It's 7:21 in the morning. I'm not doing too good. Of course, they already know that, which is why this is all happening. But coincidence, and that's one thing I always found interesting, was the level of communication between these interagencies and governments, like city, regional, provincial, federal, that all seem to claim that they're not some of its parts. That federal justice is different from provincial justice, and municipal is whatever it is. Anyway, sorry. Good morning. I just want to say hello to everybody. This is all consumed, so it's kind of, and the pressure's been unbelievable. My heart's not too good. The situation's not good because of what's going on. Anyway, I don't want to make this too involved or repetitive. I want to be more to the point. In Canadian law, criminal malfeasance is what's it's called in public office. Malfeasance in public office is when, quote, a public office holder acts or fails to act in a way that constitutes a breach of the duties of that office. Okay? And a civil act of misfeasance in public office is knowingly engaging in unlawful conduct, and it says the word unlawful. And that includes all lawyers, Law Society of Upper Canada, law schools, governments, the Crown. Everyone, including citizens, are required to act in a lawful manner. They are not allowed to act unlawfully, which means not in context with the law. And it appears from our inquiries and everything that everybody's wondering why this is going on. Well, it's because I've got a Human Rights Legal Support Center. I've gone through all their bells and whistles again, writing letters and putting it up on YouTube and sending them videos and everything, and apparently that's not good enough. They're saying, again, they're scared as hell because I am a person with a disability. I have had a brain injury since 2004. I have inadvertently, because of my memory problems, I've had to record contacts with doctors, lawyers, points of contact with government, day-to-day stuff. Ridiculous what I got to keep track of. But it's a good thing I did. I didn't realize what I had. It's basically an anthropological study of the animal in its own environment across all levels of its habitat. And what we are talking about is, so I mean, it's a matter of press play. It's not a matter of he said, she said. It's a matter of here's that point in time, press play. They knew they were being recorded. They were doing what they were doing willingly on the recording as it was happening. I am the owner of all recordings. I tried to bring this up for the matter with where they invited me to the courthouse and assaulted me and dragged me into their criminal system trying to pull their shenanigans there, which has been well documented. And as a matter of record, they have created a false narrative around all of this. And it's their false narrative that, I mean, this is public record that we're talking about here, so it's not, I didn't make this up. The law is clear who is responsible to uphold the law. When it comes to any kind of buildings, it's Minister of Housing, Municipal Affairs and Housing. The reason why it's called Municipal Affairs and Housing is because you can't do anything in this province, building new, renovating old, or whatever, without municipal affair approval. Or at least I'm saying it's not our business, so go ahead and do what you need to. But that certainly applies to the lawyers. And this is about the law. So anyway, misfeasance in public office is knowingly engaging in unlawful conduct, such as my arrest. Because if the landlord is acting unlawfully, and the people that are supposed to be the powers that be are not acting lawfully and upholding the law by doing a simple $450 market value assessment on this property, and the only requirement is that the tenant asked for it to be done. We have done it in every form and content, and here we are. They refuse to do it because it's already been evaluated based on 100A's work order. They made the mistake of including the fence for 98B. That's their mistake, but it is a matter of record. And that order still has not been satisfied. This is all about them hiding what we don't know what they're up to. Won't hurt them, but it's exposed. This exposes. The law for rental bylaw is to protect people like me and tenants and the taxpayer. The taxpayer was said, we enacted this law which a lawyer signed on behalf of all levels of government to enact as a lawful measure, the rental license bylaw, which they refused to charge this landlord under. He has not received any kind of charge that we know of for the rental license bylaw, nor has anybody else in the city of Waterloo since its inception. Even though the work order is based on property standards bylaw and the municipal act is clear and the rental bylaw is clear that any infringement of any other bylaw is automatically an infringement of the rental license bylaw. They are still not in compliance with the rental license bylaw. And that is our charge. So therefore the municipality and the province and the region and the city are enabling this unlawful rental business to continue. There's $44,400 in unlawful rent paid to date for 98B. There is $28,800 in unlawful rent paid to date for 100A Marshall Street before we were unlawfully evicted. Plus costs and everything. They know it. Anyway, all of this falls within Minister Steve Clark's Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. They are solely responsible for upholding law with all buildings, new construction, including long-term care homes, hospitals, schools, and all public buildings. So, the long-term care homes, it's the same thing that's going on. They defer them, and this is what they mean by less government, is that we ask the people who make 737s if it's safe. We ask people in long-term care homes who have also been helping participate in this prolonged exploitation of the law, because it's obviously not being upheld. When it comes to new buildings, it's a Minister of Housing that's responsible for coming up with housing initiatives for persons who are disabled, for persons that can't afford it. They are an agenda of just rewriting policy through the banks. And are the banks and government not subject to human rights laws? I thought it's human rights laws and laws that dictate the way that business is to be performed, not the other way around, because banks are the ways and means for the Crown and through the Municipal Act to enact its judicial immunity, in spite of what it does, apparently. At least that's the interpretation we're receiving. So anyway, I don't mean to be rambling, but this is... Anyway, I'm sorry. Anyway, I wrote this down so I could try and stick to a script. So they're in charge of hospitals and all that. They're also in charge of public health. All inspectors, food inspectors, all building inspectors, all police services, all fire, everything that comes under Municipal Act is under their purview. All tribunals. And it's interesting that that includes all police, fire, and ER services, etc. Everything that is essential for security of person is not diverted to a court. It is diverted to these tribunals, through Tribunals Ontario and the Municipal Act system. So they pretend not to be the sum of its parts, federal, provincial, municipal, city, etc. But what about enforcement? Here we have this pandemic going on, so for 2 years now, I invite everybody, please go look at the video series we did. It was just to document the ridiculousness of what was happening. And here we have, again, evidence of misfeasance and malfeasance, because, again, no person means that fire inspector. When Shane Turner allowed those documents, those misrepresented documents, to be passed in the first time, that's bad enough. But when he became aware that they were not what they said they were. They, instead of coming in just doing a top to bottom, because they knew what the outcome would be, they are the ones who are responsible. The landlord, the owner, any property management, and the city, region, and municipal affairs, which is responsible to maintain minimum building code in every single structure as required by law, especially with regard to this rental bylaw. So you have the lawyer signing the rental license bylaw saying this is to protect us, and then they have the contracts. Obviously there's some sort of contract going on here because this is a situation of willing partners. They are covering, actively covering for this unlawful rental business. And there are serious issues that need to be addressed here, because this would never have been landlord-tenant had they done their job properly in the first place, or the second place, or every other place. Please watch it. You will see they turned all resources against the complainants and against the taxpayer, because this is an inappropriate use of taxpayers' funds. It was supposed to go in top to bottom inspection. Here's the result. Get it right. As of July 15th, 2019, when it was done, it should have been to code. It should have been right. Therefore, as of that date, the legal current standing of that building was correct, and now anything that is not that way is held to account. That's the way we are made to understand the laws to work. Not to sit there and have them come in and go, well, we already accepted these documents, so we're just going to make it look like the documents in spite of any kind of thing, and we're going to change the whole law without going to a court or anybody and say we're going to call it standard practices, which happens to be not to code, which happens to be unlawful for the ministry to maintain. And what we've uncovered here is that when it comes to, they're ignoring manufacturers' installation instructions. There are serious issues here. Fire, they gave them licenses sight unseen for both these properties. This property at 98B has a history on the public record, well known to municipal enforcement. And yet look at what they did here for the fire inspection after giving them the same license. I was so concerned with what was going on 100A, we didn't pay attention to what was going on over 98B, but we walked through and the results are on YouTube. That is a crime, and especially when they come here and they're still covering it up. So anyway, sorry about that. It's all down to municipal enforcement. They're not enforcing, they're exploiting. Municipal affairs, you know, they're doing whatever they want using notwithstanding, because anybody they want to discount is notwithstanding. You know, and covered by judicial immunity. Because they keep coming back to this thing, like the way we were treated with landlord-tenant, and that's municipal affairs and housing. It's all municipal affairs. And the Attorney General's been informed, Finance Minister's been informed, Doug Ford's been informed, we've gone to Independent Living Center of Waterloo Region, other things, you know, there's nowhere to go. So, you know, so what does open for business mean? Is this what it means? It's okay to undermine the law with willing partners? As long as everybody's on the same page and make it look good on paper? Because again, it's about controlling the narrative. They are preventing any and all parts of our claim from being registered on the record, even to the point where they went behind our backs when they knew I was not doing well, when I just got cut off from health care, all of which is to provoke my PTSD to go, hey man, I'm not worth it. I mean, what do you think's going to happen? It's a good thing I'm stable. It's a good thing I'm aware of their hypervigilance that they're trying to put me under and everything they're doing. If I wasn't, maybe I'd be the next Manassian, and nobody's asked a question about his refusal of proper treatment. And I bet you there's not one iota of it in the record of his court case, that he had any problem with delivery of services with his mental health services, like everybody else is having. And I've got it documented as a coordinated, sum of its parts, effort to suppress what I am trying to say, what I've discovered over the years, by accident. You know, I'm not doing it to them. The truth is. Anyway, willing partners. Lawyer signs into law, then you know, signs contracts with legal landmines. They're not allowed. So like RIM, Research in Motion, when they did that, they have bylaws. They have laws for province and region and all that, and these lawyers are required to be aware of those laws and make sure that those laws are covered when they initiate the contract, to make sure those landmines aren't there, that they're removed, that it's as legal as can be possible. That's why you spend all the big bucks for them to do it. But yet, every time they do one of these contracts, whether it's in Waterloo for RIM or Mississauga at the provincial level for hydro, or any of these highways or anything like that, nobody knows what these contracts are doing, but by what's shown here, everything we've determined is from the public record in our discovery of it, which means they're already aware of it, or should be. It is in the public record, which is supposed to be open to anybody who wants to see it. Of course, the question leads us to what's going on with development. So, of course, we go to the region and we say we want to get public access to those records, and we get no response. Because they already know the answer. The same reason why they're not doing an inspection at these properties. They already know the answer, and thank you for providing that work order, because now we have the answer too. Anyway, they are certainly not allowed to go around and undermine the very laws that they say that they're upholding in these, how they negotiate these contracts and open for business. Because nobody talks about the costs of the legal fees around RIM or what happened in the boondoggle. And it doesn't, you know, the boondoggle at Mississauga was Liberals. Right now you got progressive conservative. That's the window dressing, because the culprit is municipal affairs across any and every political stripe. Abuse is there, and it's based on how these are being negotiated. And based on what I'm trying to remember her name. Is it Michelle Coyle? I hope I got it right. Michelle Coyle from Rosemount, when I heard her on 570 News. You know, this is people who are homeowners. They pay taxes. They went through the system just like we did. We paid our fees. We did everything we were required to. They play the game with you, and then at the last minute they pull the rug out from under you because you are not withstanding. They're not even concerned. And the reason why is because you can take it, go pay a lawyer, and even if that lawyer with the best intent would use the law to help you, is prevented from doing so, because even if he attempts to, the court will stop him. This is a municipal act prison system, is what we've uncovered, I believe, which is why they don't want it to go to human rights. Doing everything in their power to not have this go to human rights. Doing everything in their power to inflict any punishment, pain, and suffering that they can. What is your description of hardship? You know, their definitely message is clear to me. I mean, I'm not getting out of this alive. People like me don't get out of this alive. Look what they've been able to do so far. I'm no George Floyd. Nobody's stepping in to save me. No, that's why I'm just sitting here going, you know what, I'm telling the truth because I got nothing to lose. Nothing. Anyway, municipal act is clear. No person shall misrepresent. Includes city, region, province, federal, all government, and the crown. No person shall misrepresent. No person shall act unlawfully. And unlawful is clear. If the law says the rental license bylaw abides, then that is what he should be applied against. And if it says that one bylaw begets another bylaw, that means what it means. And if it means it can only be satisfied by proving that the work has been done, the terms have been met, there are no more further, because again, they just gave him another rental license based on the fact that every time they sign that document, they're saying our property meets the standard, has no hazards, and is compliant. To do anything else is misrepresentation and fraud, which is why we took the tack when they put that license here, because again, if you do not have a rental license hanging in your rental building in Waterloo, They are already not in compliance with the rental license bylaw because it must be clearly marked and placed, which is why when we went to rent next door, it was there. And we have to examine how they have these two companies all the time. They just switch back and forth because I'm not saying, I don't know if Kukul Marku is involved, but he happens, Theo Papadopoulos, the owner of all these properties, works for the commercial division of Kukul Marku, who happens to be in a cozy relationship with the city of Waterloo to provide all building services and real estate needs. Go look at the real estate. I mean, I bet you anybody says we put these out, they're probably dissolving it or something to make it look good. But the fact remains, there are contracts in that public record that we should be able to get record access to. And we don't even get a response because they know what's there. Anyway, it doesn't matter because the bottom line is this. Proper use of taxpayers' money dictates that now that this situation is the way it is, they need to do these inspections. We are asking the public to demand that they do these inspections on behalf of the taxpayer. So if they act unlawfully, they are not acting in good faith, and if there's no good faith, there is no immunity. If they're acting unlawfully, so Ms. Edu and Ian Kerr and everybody over at Landlord Tenant Board who thinks that you can do an ex-party order and then tell me to shut the hell up and I'm not the client, I'm disabled, I don't have to listen to you because I'm not the client stuff. And this unlawful order where you demanded that we pay unlawful rent as a matter of record to this landlord, which we just did. We paid May's rent as your unlawful order dictated. And when I say dictated, I mean dictated because it's unlawful. And you cannot hide behind judicial immunity, ma'am. None of you can, because you are acting unlawfully and you are acting in bad faith, and especially with the way that this communication went down between Human Rights Legal Support Center, which is basically just legal aid. They're not the tribunal. I'm not expecting much better from the tribunal because it's Tribunals Ontario. They are the sum of their parts, and they are there by design, engineered for a purpose. They control the system with a legal issue. It's a legal issue. So even if a homeowner goes and hires a lawyer, even if that lawyer or anybody, a police officer, firemen, all these people that go to these positions of virtue with good intent, and they're prevented from doing it, they could actually risk their job and their career if they keep doing the right thing and don't just toe the line. Police officers, when I was arrested, they are putting police officers through wrongful training into dangerous situations with biased information, unprepared, hyper-vigilant, that they are at risk, and they are, because their whole, I work with these people in security. They deserve better. My whole point of going to Independent Living Center and everywhere else, from the moment I was assaulted at the courthouse to the time I was rearrested now, every single time was to do a police complaint on behalf of myself and the officers because of lack of improper training, because of this bias, because of this judicial immunity to cover any wrongful act they decide to pull. What's your definition of hardship? Who's being protected by the law here? Is the taxpayer? So they control the system with a legal issue by design. It's a municipal act prison system. Nowhere can you have an unbiased, and nowhere is it unbiased or and not corrupt. So that we went to Independent Living Centers of Waterloo Region. Second time I went there, again asking just for assistance. Can I have somebody please help me take my facts and translate it onto a document with a police complaint, with human rights complaint, Anyway, I'm going to post the answer up. There's a new, she says she's new, I got to check my notes, but Sherry Roberts, she's the Independent Living Center of Waterloo Region's new, I guess, Director of Communications, or I don't know what her title is, but she's like one of the head people there. We had a very good conversation. She's a good person. Like I said, most of these people in these agencies are good intent, and it's like, if we're so free, why are our hands tied? And so specifically, because the purpose is all to the same thing, which is number one, protecting anything the Crown or any of the representatives in government does or doesn't do. And the other thing is to create debt and dependency. Anyway, Sherry Roberts, I talked to her, we had a nice conversation, especially with what was going on as far as how I've been treated to date. She took the time. And there was another gentleman who answered the phone. Good to, again, I need to explain to people, I mean, I keep apologizing because I was talking with my neighbor, Dieter, the other day, too, and I kept apologizing, and he was the first person who said, why are you apologizing? Because this is bad, that's happening to you. And I had to say, well, thank you for that, but the reason why I apologize is because just to give any of this, even one part of this to anybody is like an assault on their sensibilities. I mean, it's been an assault on us, and we are all disabled by design. Anyway, so we gave the response, and I asked her, I said, you know, the response I got from them before is that it's not their purview, they're not allowed to. And that turned out to be the case again. So she looked into it, they had a meeting about it and all that, and she gave me a response yesterday. I'll post a copy of it online. Basically, she sends you back to Human Rights Legal Support Center, Legal Aid, and Tribunals Ontario, which are the people that are doing this. So the system, and again, it's just to go, hey man, can we just have somebody just, again, I'm not telling you, like, we're the author of the document. All I need is somebody to help me to put it together in the proper form and content, and then we file it. You know, how hard is that? Impossible, obviously. Especially when you got actual evidence, which has already been provided to these people, so they know what's going on. They can't pretend they didn't. And this ex parte thing, landlord-tenant is responsible to send you the documents directly. There is more than one occasion with this where they have got, and these landlords have been able to file under Atlas Property Group, Commissions Worldwide Inc. for the same property multiple times, withdraw. We presented evidence on behalf of part of it. Oh, well, they didn't show up, so we did consider it closed. Same as what happened next door, right? Because they just cannot have that on the record. Any of that. Just like they did in the last time, when we gave them all of it at a hearing as a person with a disability. Notwithstanding. Right? Are you getting it yet? Notwithstanding. What's the difference between Uyghurs in China, disabled in Canada, and Palestinians in Israel right now? Notwithstanding. Geography, that's it. We're all notwithstanding. Old age people dying in the old age homes. What are they? Are they notwithstanding? The only reason why they sent the military in is because that's federal, which means federal and provincial cooperation, and there's only one reason why they were sent in, and that's to be ordered to shut the hell up. And in spite of that, they still got the word out of it, and look at how good that detailed report is. And Chartwell Homes, from last time I checked, which is a group of old folks' homes in Waterloo region. They have one in one in Waterloo, one in Kitchener, one in Cambridge. I think they got another one in Guelph or whatever. That is run by Mike Harris, the ex-premier of Ontario. So does Mike Harris, the ex-premier of Ontario, know anything about regulations? What requirements are necessary, and at what point does long-term care home become a medical facility? Because again, there should be proper ventilation in all schools. Why is Minister of Housing responsible for all planning? So this should be done a long time ago, that all hospitals, all schools should have HVAC. Had we done that, there would be no pandemic, or at least reduced. We'll get back to that though. So, I mean, there's a lot more they could be doing. When it comes to landlord-tenant, it was a lawyer who gave this landlord an illegal lease, which he's using freely in the marketplace, which landlord-tenant is not doing anything to curtail, because it's been law that there is only one allowed lease. They're not doing anything to streamline that. They're not doing anything to say, hey, matter of fact, there used to be a rule where you couldn't file unless you had a copy of the lease attached. And if there's not, why not? And only that, you have to license your car, but you don't have to sit there and have an inspection to say, this is of, like I said, every place with a residential license should have a full top to bottom inspection. And as of the point of that license, as of that date, the legal standing of that building is what we say it is, not what we make up as we go along, like you see in these video series. Anyway, I'm sorry, I gotta be careful. I gotta stick to the notes here to see where I'm at. Where are we at time-wise? Oh, getting there. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm going the best I can. So, it is. So we cannot even get independent representation or of the facts, which are already part of the public record. To defend or obtain a proper legal evaluation of any property by those responsible to uphold the law and maintain lawful compliance, which is minimum standard, for example, the Ontario Building Code. Ministry of Housing and the owner-landlord management is solely responsible for that. No tenant's responsible for that. If once it reaches that, if a tenant makes damages, then we can be held responsible for that, or any damages caused by our guests. But you're not even allowed to legally rent a place, even without the rental license, technically, without it meeting minimum standard, based on the law, if applied correctly and preventatively. So instead of preventing this landlord from operating an unlawful business, they're assisting him to do it at the expense of the taxpayer, and instead they're preventing from registering the overdue incomplete work order as a lien against the property. Because it was supposed to be satisfied July 15, 2019, which is 674 days ago from today. That's at 100 day, okay? That is still, for every day and part day that it has not been completed. That's 674 days. So they only charged it, like, said it was under property standards. So under property standards, that's $350 a day. So 674 days is $235,900 owing on 100A based on that work order, just for $350 a day times 674 days of it not being completed. Matter of fact, there's new infractions there. It's not only not completed, but there's new infractions there, because they just sat there and tried to make it look like the document instead of just doing their damn job. So it's been unlawful this whole time, which means that anybody who paid rent there, technically that's unlawful rent too. But the fact of the matter is, Municipal Act states that if you're guilty, and the Rental License Act or bylaw states, if you are in violation of one, you are in violation of all of them. So if you're in violation of, if they had charged them, because they didn't charge them under rental license bylaw, only under property standards, to try and hide that this is not a rental license bylaw issue. But had they done it correctly, as the law allows, it would be $850 a day on that property, which is actually $572,900 in fines, and it's to be collected as taxes. That's just for the daily fine. $572,900 on 100A. But then there's also the fact that there's 3 corporations involved. There is Koenig Holdings, Inc., there is Atlas Property, Inc., and there is Commissions Worldwide, Inc. That is 3 corporations. First offense, if found guilty, is $50,000 fine. Every subsequent offense is a $100,000 fine. So that means if they were found guilty on 100A, they would owe $572,900. So here, let's do this. Let's see what it would be. 572,900. Okay, put that in memory. Oh, hang on. Sorry, just bear with me. Okay, so then you go 50,000 times 3, because there's 3 corporations for the first offense. Right, that's $150,000, so we add that. Okay, then there's $100,000 for every subsequent offense. Now this is why I say they made a mistake. They're so Keystone Cop about what's going on. I guess they're covered by judicial immunity so much that they don't care how they screw up. That's why Allison Hensall, if you go look at the actual video, they are breaking the law right on video. That is malfeasance, misfeasance on video, because they are giving misrepresented information to us and also misrepresenting the actual legal standing of these buildings. So their arrogance, because we were talking about, he promised to give us a fence. And I was saying, hey, you know, well, here it is on our property. They only did the back fence and part of the other fence. They didn't do the other side here, so you can't have a partial fence, especially when it's not closed in on 3 sides. Okay? So, because the neighbor's fence was incorrect here, they stopped. Anyway, go watch the videos. But the point is this, it's not our fence. They included in the work order saying that it needed to be repaired, that it did not meet code, that it needs to be repaired. It is in the work order, clearly stated, and it's their mistake that it happens to be 98B's property. The issue is when we formed an association to include both properties. When we did our 100A case, it included 98B. We were asking for inspection here as well, and they denied it. They used the wrongful death of John Lichty in July of 2019 against everybody, adding the trauma, trying to keep us unbalanced, and doing what they're doing. This is criminal. I'm sorry. You know. But the point is this. Because that fence was included, that means 98B is also 674 days late with being fixed, because they didn't fix the fence. But it means that there's certainly more than enough evidence at this property and in the public record to show that Shane Turner, Mayor Jaworski, Karen Redmond, Ian Kerr, buddy at Landlord Tenant, the chairman of Landlord Tenant, Tony Bruto, Miss Adu, Minister Clark, Doug Ford, Finance Minister, Attorney General, Solicitor General. All of you are put on notice. That means that, so that's $150,000. That means that 98B is the second offense. So hang on a minute. Now we go cancel. Just a minute. So let's go memory recall. So just on 100A, with the $50,000 fines and $674 a day, is $722,900 in potential fines on that property as it stands right now and counting. Because it still has not been satisfied. They still have not proven that it ever was. And there's more than enough evidence to say that it's not. So they are, in effect, allowing and aiding and abetting an unlawful rental business to be carried on. And this isn't the only one. There are 4 properties that are in question here. He owns many, many more rental properties. Atlas Property Group declared itself $8 to $10 million. They went from $8 million to $10 million in sales in a couple of years. And that was including the time that they were managing these properties. Mark Koenig of Koenig Holdings also happens to be the chief financial officer for Atlas Property Group. That is not only misrepresentation on the documents, but also in proceedings. The legal person, what do they call them? Paralegal, Lisa Nadon of Small Business Matters, or Small Matters, Paralegal Services. It's a matter of course that the industry has set it up that they're allowed, I guess they're allowed to do this. They pretend not to notice. Again, this is evidence why all they need to do is register the address the same as they do an automobile with the same kind of license. You have to prove the license before you can drive the vehicle. So prove the license before you can rent it, because that's what the law says. The minimum standard of the law, and again, is clear who is responsible for that, and it's not the tenant. Ever. So we're talking $722,000. Well, we could double that automatically. Times 2. No, actually we can't. We can't. What we got to do is we got to go back. Hang on. So what we got to do is 720. Memory recall, 722,900 plus 572. Oh. Anyway, the point is, I lost track where it is. The point is, this property would be an extra. If it's $350,000, it would be $235,900. If it's $850, it's $572,900. So you're already over $1 million on one property. That's just for fines. Okay, then there's $100,000 per property. So that's $300,000 because 3 corporations. So now you're almost up to $2 million in fines and what have you, at potential risk of not being properly assessed here. That is a matter, and it's all a matter of public record. We have the links in the video series. This becomes a bigger thing, though, because it's not only about the way they're choosing to do business and covering up the way they're doing business, hiding behind what they see as judicial immunity in an act of bad faith. You know, with clear unlawfulness. We are asking the Minister of the Attorney General, Doug Ford, Finance Minister, Minister Clark and Ian Kerr, all of whom have been informed of this situation. We are putting you on notice that you are causing harm by allowing this landlord to exist. Not just on us, but on every taxpayer of Waterloo Region. And quite possibly the province of Ontario, because if this is their business model for all of Ontario, we need to know. And it certainly appears so because, like I said, there's Mississauga. They know what the rules are for writing a legal contract. And by virtue of putting these landmines in it, they automatically have repeat business. And it creates an air of confusion and unwarranted paperwork. And it's all about the legal fees, because the only place you can go is the courts or to these tribunals, which are obviously controlled, biased, proven in this situation, because again, they do not have this level of coordination. They knew my health is not good. They are still trying to provoke a state of hypervigilance with me. Are they waiting for me to drive down the street like Manassian because I've been refused treatment too? And these are all relevant questions. Sorry, it's going long. Anyway, where am I? So it's been an accident. We have been prevented from the public record, prevented from Accessibility Ontarians with Disabilities Act access on all levels, written, phoned in, posted on YouTube, doesn't matter. They just don't respond. They don't have to. Judicial immunity, I guess, right? Just ignore it. Notwithstanding, we don't have to answer you. I'll send Telford. And she won't answer you either, because it's not in our job description to know. And let's talk about this, because the system is set up deliberately to insulate them, because they seem to think that even though you write it down, put in a letter, you post it on YouTube, they're going like, la 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 la, I didn't hear it. Or my assistant heard it and then she didn't tell me. You know, you can post it to, we gave it to them. They accepted it as evidence in the last hearing in November. Then they went backdated to October, which is impossible because anything that happened in October would have been dealt with in November. It's the same company, the same property, the same issues. They accepted our evidence, including documentation, papers, the whole bit, just like they did at 100A. But it's notwithstanding, so none of that evidence means anything. They just go, that's notwithstanding, we do what we want, and we're covered by judicial immunity. That's why she could go, and her attitude is, you're not the client. I don't have to listen to you. They haven't listened to us the whole time because we are notwithstanding. Just like Uyghurs in China, just like Palestinians right now. Really convenient. And they claim to uphold the law. And it's really funny that everything there, they're bombing buildings because it takes municipal to rebuild, right? Not seeing the connection here? Tied directly to the greatest welfare case that ever was. By self-declaration. Because what the hell do you call welfare? Living off the backs of everybody else, the commonwealth? We need a referendum to have this criminal element removed, and don't blame them because they've been thinking about this. They've been living like this for centuries. They think this is their God-given right. Well, the question is, are banks and governments required to follow human rights? Because even when you put through a highway, they have to check for salamanders and turtles and stuff, but not human beings? Displacement of human beings? What's the difference between dropping bombs on people in Palestine and dropping these legal bombs on us? So they can send us to their system to exploit us further, to misuse taxpayers' funds to keep this whole pony show going. I invite you, go to the Law Society, or go to the Legal Aid website. Go to the Government Finance website. Look at how much they're spending for courts. Look at how much they're spending for legal aid. It's a stopgap measure. Everything is a stopgap measure, especially when it comes to them being held responsible. What's your definition of freedom? If we're so free, why are our hands tied? How are they able to do this? Who's the law protecting? One thing's for sure, do you trust government? Should you? This is like my dying declaration. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to make it out of this.